tonight on CTV News. Hear about the tragic shooting that took place at a King Soopers in Boulder, Colorado on Tuesday, as well as the Colorado vaccine distribution rollout. All that and more on CTV News tonight.
Good afternoon, CTV News. My name is Alexandria Cullen, and I will be filling in as your main anchor tonight. We are currently filming for the ASCSU presidential, vice presidential, and speaker debate. Due to this, we are currently out of studio and working from home. Please enjoy our Tuesday night show and stay tuned for Thursday as well, when we'll be back with more news just for you. Our first story by Ren Wadsworth talks about the Boulder shooting that took place on Tuesday, March 24th.
10 people tragically died on Monday in Boulder, Colorado. In a mass shooting at a King Soopers in Boulder, Colorado, 10 individuals, including a police officer, were killed. Police arrested 21-year-old Ahmed al-Alicia Alyssa on 10 counts of first-degree murder after the shooting. Authorities said that Alyssa was in stable condition at the hospital on Tuesday after being shot in the leg before he was apprehended. Investigators have not established a motive as of yet, but Alyssa's family stated that they believed he was suffering from mental illnesses, including delusions. Investigators also believe that Alyssa acted alone in this shooting. The ages of the victims range from 20 to 65 and was seemingly random. The names of the victims has been released to the public, and a full list can be found on sites like CPR and NBC.com if you wish to view them.
Our next story, also by Ren Wadsworth, talks about how Source News is getting involved with CSU and the COVID-19 pandemic.
1 full year has passed since the pandemic started, and now Colorado State University is looking at how we impacted the virus, and in turn, how the virus impacted us. CSU's official news site, Source, has created an award-winning package of stories of Colorado State University amidst the COVID-19 crisis. It features the faculty, researchers, staff, employees, and of course students who are championing the university's rallying cry, "Together we continue." The piece showcases pictures, personal stories, and facts about how coronavirus impacted Rams and how students and staff rallied against COVID-19 and continue to push for progress and change. It's crazy to think that over a year has passed since the world was flipped upside down, but nevertheless, together we continue.
Speaking of COVID, our next story by Robbie Potla talks about COVID and the Colorado distribution vaccine rollout.
1 year has passed since COVID-19 sent the world into lockdown. As communities slowly adjust to life in the pandemic, vaccine rollout has begun to increase. March 21st marked the start of Phase 1B.4 of vaccine distribution. As more citizens receive the vaccine, some may wonder, what does distribution look like among the CSU community?
So we are trying to prioritize based on the state's guidance of the highest risk areas and provide opportunities for different departments to be able to come in and get a vaccine on site.
Lynn said that the pandemic preparedness team is also using Larimer County and the UC Health systems to make sure larger quantities of at-risk members of CSU get the vaccination before it becomes available to the larger population.
We do know that the vaccine will be available to anybody who wants it after April 15th. So we anticipate that a number of people will go ahead and get vaccinated. I think the limiting factor around that is going to be the supply chain.
Now that members are able or will be able to get the vaccine, what does this mean for the upcoming semesters?
We do anticipate that a number of the restrictions are going to loosen. We just really don't know how much over the next couple of weeks. I think you'll see some additional messaging come out regarding what we anticipate summer will look like, what we anticipate the fall will look like, and how that may change the academic environment.
While we're on the topic of CSU, here's a story from Sarah Fowler about a chief medical research officer who, even with health conditions, chose to work through a pandemic.
Dr. Heather Peatcoke is the Chief Medical Research Officer and the Associate Director of Research at the Translational Medical Institute. Peatcoke was diagnosed with follicular lymphoma in 2014, with a relapse in 2018 and again in the summer of 2020 during the heat of the pandemic. She had to decide what it would look like with going through treatment during a pandemic.
Thing was, realizing that if I needed treatment, I would be in a hospital setting with people with, with the disease, and that, the treatment would affect my immune system. So of course that was a little bit of a concern. And so that was part of the thing driving us to go forward with treatment rather than waiting.
While her treatment was in full swing, she was doing her work from the hospital. She was focused on preparing the university for what steps they were going to have to take in the fall, and how they can keep students as safe as possible with starting a new normal for the school year.
Part of it is that, of course, I was very active in working on the solutions to the pandemic for CSU and very involved with that, and I didn't want to, have that effort in any way affected.
Once her treatment was complete, she was in full remission and back to work full-time from home. Pete Koch had taken a new perspective on life and the connection between the struggle of the pandemic and cancer.
I think that everything in life is better with partnerships. I think the pandemic effort, it was as successful as it was because of all the people that got together and partnered together to create solutions and to make them happen and to make them as good as they could be. I think the same thing happened with my cancer treatment. My partnership with my doctor, my oncologist, Dr. Kamdar, was really important to arriving at the best strategy for my health and for my life.
And last but not least, for our news segment, we go to a package from Sophia Ridley, who talks to students at CSU about cancel culture.
In today's political and social climate, there's a new social trend called cancel culture. According to the New York Post, cancel culture can be defined as the phenomenon of promoting the canceling of people, brands, and even shows and movies due to what some consider to be offensive or problematic remarks or ideologies. So I asked students how they feel about this new phenomenon.
I think that cancel culture gets overused. I think that people tend to cancel things that aren't as important, and it kind of distracts from the bigger issue.
I guess it just depends on what the person is doing.
Experts say this cultural boycott is nothing new, but has evolved from protesting ideologies and products to trying to remove people from platforms and even get them fired or blacklisted from jobs and schools.
I think probably one of the better examples of it is like on TikTok, people cancel creators because it's like a 16-year-old who does something. It really just feels more like excessive use of thought mentality.
With this new cultural phenomenon taking over social media, many people are worried about how subjective this boycotting is and no longer being innocent until proven guilty.
Well, that's all we have for tonight's news. Next, we're going to talk to Zaya Hiley, who has all of the updates on your weather schedule.
How's it going, Rams? I'm Zaya Hiley, and I'm out here this Tuesday morning on the plaza for your weather broadcast. So you can see it's a semi-windy morning, and we have a mix of sun and clouds, but this is supposed to give way to more clouds later this afternoon. We've got a high of 43 and a low of 28, with wind gusts from 15 to 25 miles per hour. And you can see we've got a little bit of snow left from the storm, but most of it has melted away because we're getting up into the 50s, and especially later this week, we get up into the 50s and 60s, except on Friday, there is a little bit of a chance of precipitation possible. And that's all I have for you for the weather for now, but please stay tuned.
For our next segment, we take to Ellison Hubbard, who has all of your news and updates in CSU sports.
How's it going, Ram fans? Welcome back to another night of Hubbard's Huddle. I'm Ellison Hubbard, and tonight is a different night. No updating news, no anything on CSU athletics. It's my top 5 highlight plays of the week. It's back. It's been a year, but I have your top 5 highlight plays of the week, and I will start it off with number 5. So let's break this huddle and get right to it. Luka Doncic dribbling down the court, looking for somebody open. Flick of the wrist, Hardaway Jr., nothing but net. Ooh, look at his wrist. Look at his wrist. It's flicking. It's flicking. He's playing a different sport, not basketball. Beautiful, beautiful assist by Luka Doncic. That is my number 5 play right there. They did lose that game on Saturday, but they ended up winning on Sunday as they won the game 1-1, and now they're looking forward to another win this week. Now, we're moving on to number 4 as we have CP3 and the Suns versus the Los Angeles Lakers. CP3 dribbling down the court, throwing the ball up, slam! DeAndre Ayton, DA, getting the dunk on there. That is CP3's 10,000th assist on his career. 35-year-old, still playing in the NBA. He's not that old, but wow, 10,000 assists. Who can do that? A lot of other guys like John Stockton, Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Mark Jackson, and Magic Johnson. And that's his 1,000th game of getting 10,000 assists. Congratulations, CP3. You are on my number 4th top highlight player of the week. Now we're moving on to number 3. Gonzaga with the ball, throws it up to Ai. Off the glass, dunk down by Suggs. Dunk, ooh! They went on to destroy Norfolk State to move on to the Sweet 32, the 32 seeds. And now they're in the Sweet 16. And Gonzaga, I really believe, is going to win this one. They are now top 3 on my highlights. Gonzaga, please win it all, because right now, Oral Roberts, Loyola Chicago, a bunch of teams in there that we weren't expecting. Gonzaga, you're my number 3. Now we're moving on to number 2. We have Drake Yesufu with the steal, going down, posterizing on Wichita State's defender. Look at this right here. Posterize. You can't block me. Get out the way. Yesufu with the yes dunk on the defender right there. That is a beautiful dunk right there. I mean, that should have been my number 1. I know you guys are concerned what could be my number 1 play right there. But right there, number 2, Yesufu was putting down the slams on that game. Drake went in to, unfortunately, lose in the second round. But good job on that game right there, Drake. And now for my number 1 play. UCLA versus BYU. Point guard Yami Yaquez slamming it down. Wow, look at this. Get out the way. Clear the room. Yami Yaquez giving the dunk on everybody right there. UCLA is now getting ready to face either Maryland or Alabama. If you can't see why that's my number 1 highlight play of the week, you must not love basketball enough, because dunks are always my number 1. But that's all I have for you tonight, Rams. I thank you for watching my top 5 highlight plays of the week. Now, this was the last one of this year, but again, just thank you for tuning in, and y'all have a beautiful night.
And last, but certainly not least, we take to Tygel Branson, who introduces a package about a local clothing store who's been feeding into the community for the last 13 years.
When you walk through Fort Collins, you think about the food, the breweries, and the Disneyland style of Old Town. But what about fashion? Susan Aiken, owner of Aikens in downtown Fort Collins, has been filling that void for a while.
Now I've been here for 13 years. I decided to start Aikens because I always knew I wanted to do something creative. My mother was an art teacher, my father owned his own business.
Unlike most clothing stores, Aikens designs and creates their apparel in the store.
I think the main thing that people don't realize about us is that we do make everything here. It's all made right in this small Old Town store. We actually have started doing a lot more like laser engraved and etched items. So it's kind of the same process of making the design for our shirts, but then we transition the design to a laser.
Just because Aikens has thrived for over a decade, it doesn't mean things are simple.
Definitely there's a little bit less access to resources. I have to order a lot of things in. We're growing, but it's a still pretty small town, so there's a lot of kind of marketing outside of our town, to reach different people and stuff like that, since we're pretty small. People here are they embrace the local scene really well, so you get a lot of support locally.
CTV viewers, that's all we have for you tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you back on Thursday for another news segment.